We grow up believing that real transformation demands sweat and sacrifice, long nights, endless learning curves, and years of proving we deserve success. For entrepreneurs, freelancers, and creators, that belief becomes almost a badge of honor. But what if the story is backwards? What if the struggle you're so proud of is actually the very thing blocking the breakthrough you're chasing? Thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptian sage Thoth left a message that slices through our modern obsession with hustle. Quantum shifting is simple. So simple that most people miss it completely. He understood that consciousness and reality aren't two separate layers to be stitched together. They are a single living field responding to the frequency you already carry. This truth is unsettling because the ego distrusts ease. It whispers that anything worthwhile must be hard, that effort equals value. Yet the more you grind, the more you reinforce the very vibration of lack that keeps you stuck. Thoth invites us to drop the myth of struggle and remember a power hidden in plain sight, the ability to step into a new reality, not by force, but by alignment.
You probably know the feeling, the constant background hum that says you need to be doing more. It's there when you check email before your morning coffee, when you stare at the analytics dashboard long after midnight, when you scroll through someone else's overnight success post and wonder how far behind you've fallen. Whether you're bootstrapping a startup, freelancing to pay the bills, or building an audience one painstaking video at a time, you've been conditioned to believe that transformation, whether in business, wealth, or self, is the prize for relentless effort. Our culture has turned the grind into a moral code. The harder you fight, the more worthy you become. But in the realm of quantum shifting, the radical reordering of reality through consciousness, this very mindset becomes the invisible barrier that keeps the door locked. Ancient Egypt's sage of wisdom, Thoth, warned that the most profound truths hide in plain sight. The mechanics of quantum shifting are elegantly simple, but we miss them because our minds are addicted to struggle and complexity. Three intertwined forces keep us trapped: the ego's resistance to simplicity, the cultural programming of struggle, and what Thoth called the veil of complexity. Understanding these forces is like finding the blueprint of your own invisible prison. Once you see it, the walls begin to crumble.
The ego is often misrepresented as some villain lurking in the shadows, but in truth, it is a sophisticated survival system. It was built to keep you safe, to help you navigate the messy world of competition and risk. If you're an entrepreneur or freelancer, your ego has probably served you well, pushing you to pitch one more client, stay up one more hour, learn one more skill. Yet the same mechanism that helped you succeed in business is the very one that sabotages quantum shifting. Simplicity terrifies the ego, not because it hates you, but because simplicity threatens the structures it has worked so hard to build. The ego is like a skilled architect that has spent decades designing a skyscraper of identity: your work ethic, your brand, your reputation as a hustler who never quits. When someone says, "Reality can shift effortlessly when you align your inner frequency," the ego hears, "Everything you've built might not matter?" That sounds like annihilation. So it resists in subtle, persuasive ways. It whispers that ease is naive. It urges you to add just one more technique, maybe another mastermind group, a new visualization practice, or a different meditation app. Each new strategy feels proactive, but beneath the surface, the ego is simply reinforcing the belief that transformation must be earned. It feeds you the illusion that worthiness and difficulty are inseparable. In doing so, it protects its favorite fiction, that your identity depends on how hard you struggle. This resistance can show up as endless research, as perfectionism disguised as standards, or as an almost heroic devotion to busyness. Ask any founder who has spent nights tweaking pitch decks while ignoring the inner sense that the real breakthrough requires letting go, and you'll hear echoes of the same story. The ego isn't evil, It's just terrified of what happens when you no longer need it to prove your value.
Cultural programming of struggle. If the ego is the inner gatekeeper, society is the outer chorus that keeps the gate firmly shut. From our earliest school days, we are praised for effort, gold stars for perfect attendance, applause for all-nighters before exams. We grow up hearing that hard work builds character and that anything worth having demands sacrifice. For the ambitious young American, these ideas seep into the bones. They become the invisible operating system of adulthood. Look around the modern business landscape, and you can see the mythology everywhere. Startup culture celebrates the hustle hero who sleeps under his desk. Social feeds glamorize 5 a.m. wake-ups and 14-hour workdays. Podcasts and conference panels elevate the founder who bled for the dream, as if suffering were proof of destiny. Even our entertainment mirrors it. Every sports movie or biopic of a visionary entrepreneur is a montage of struggle followed by triumph. This cultural programming does more than motivate. It conditions us to equate difficulty with value. If something arrives easily, we instinctively question its legitimacy. A contract that lands without months of pitching feels suspicious. A viral video that grows an audience overnight must be a fluke. We distrust grace and effortlessness, not because they're rare, but because we've been taught they're undeserved. Quantum shifting operates on the opposite principle. It requires receptivity, not frantic output, a willingness to align, not a compulsion to force. But when every podcast and LinkedIn thread around you equates worth with grind, choosing ease feels like breaking a sacred rule. Even when you sense that forcing and striving are draining your creativity, you hesitate to let go. What if people think you're lazy? What if success that comes without suffering isn't real? This is why so many bright, capable people remain stuck. They keep doubling down on the very habits, overwork, strategic obsession, relentless networking, that signal to the quantum field a vibration of lack. They are broadcasting scarcity even as they chase abundance, and the culture cheers them on, blind to the paradox.
The veil of complexity. Thoth spoke of a third, subtler trap, the veil of complexity. The human mind adores puzzles. It wants a formula, a hidden key, a 10-step roadmap. Complexity feels safe because it keeps you busy and gives the illusion of control. When you are designing the perfect funnel, refining a 30-page business plan, or mapping yet another productivity system, you feel productive. You feel like you're steering the ship. But complexity is often a disguise for avoidance. As long as you are tinkering with your next strategy, you don't have to face the unsettling truth that transformation might require nothing more than a shift in state. The ego loves this distraction. Complexity gives it a job to do. It lets you feel like you're earning the future while quietly postponing the vulnerability of real change. Consider the countless courses and books promising the secret to manifestation or success. Each new technique promises the missing puzzle piece. Each tool gives you a burst of hope and a temporary sense of progress. Yet months or years later, many find themselves no closer to the life they imagined. They have mastered dozens of methods, but remain caught in the same patterns. Complexity has become a fortress built of good intentions, each brick another excuse to delay the leap. Breaking through the veil requires courage, because it asks you to abandon the comfort of doing for the risk of being. It means sitting in stillness without a checklist. It means letting the next step reveal itself instead of engineering it. For entrepreneurs and creators, people accustomed to measuring progress in metrics and milestones, this can feel like freefall. But as Thoth understood, the quantum field responds not to your elaborate strategies, but to the purity of your frequency. When your inner state is coherent, reality reorganizes naturally. These three forces, the ego's fear of simplicity, the culture's worship of struggle, and the mind's addiction to complexity, feed each other like gears in a well-oiled machine. The ego whispers that ease is dangerous. Society shouts that only the grind is honorable. The mind builds elaborate mazes to avoid the quiet where the real shift happens. Together they create a feedback loop so convincing that even the most visionary founders and creatives mistake it for truth. Recognizing the pattern is the first act of liberation. When you catch yourself piling on another strategy, pause and ask whose voice you're hearing. Is it the quiet intuition that senses a simpler path, or the ego terrified of irrelevance? When you notice the cultural drumbeat urging you to outwork everyone, ask whether that soundtrack belongs to your highest self or to a society addicted to hustle. When you feel the itch to complicate what could be simple, dare to sit in the silence long enough to let clarity surface. Thoth's ancient wisdom is not an invitation to abandon ambition or reject meaningful work. It is a call to reimagine the relationship between effort and transformation. Quantum shifting is not about doing nothing. It is about doing from a state of inner coherence where action flows effortlessly and results arrive without the static of fear. The truth was never hidden behind layers of secret knowledge. It was hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment you are willing to believe that simplicity is not a threat, but the very doorway to power. For the modern entrepreneur or creator, this realization can feel revolutionary. You do not have to sacrifice your health to prove your worth. You do not have to engineer a 1,000-step plan to earn the right to thrive. You simply have to notice the cage, and in noticing, you begin to step beyond it. That is the first real shift, and once it begins, reality cannot help but follow.
Part 1. Consciousness as the fabric of reality and authentic energetic signature. Picture the world you move through every day. The concrete and glass towers of a city skyline, the buzz of traffic below, the quiet glow of a laptop screen at midnight. It all feels solid and self-contained, as if reality is a fixed stage and you are simply a character moving across it. That sense of solidity, so comforting to anyone building a career or a company, is exactly what keeps most of us from noticing how fluid reality actually is. Quantum physics has been whispering a different story for over a century, and long before modern science caught the hint, the ancient Egyptian sage Thoth was already teaching it. Consciousness is not a late-arriving byproduct of matter. Consciousness is the fabric. Matter is the echo. For someone who spends their days writing proposals, designing products, or courting investors, this can sound almost poetic, interesting, but not practical. Yet, if you look closely at the discoveries that shook 20th century physics, you'll see they point to the same conclusion Thoth voiced thousands of years ago. Subatomic particles, those tiny building blocks you once learned about in high school science, don't behave like neat little billiard balls. They flicker in and out of existence as waves of probability until something observes them. The moment attention is applied, the infinite possibilities collapse into one tangible event. This observer effect isn't an esoteric rumor. It's an experimentally repeatable fact, and its implications are staggering. Reality does not crystallize until consciousness interacts with it. What we call the physical world is more like an ever-shifting field of potential, waiting for awareness to give it form. If you've ever experienced the uncanny timing of a new client appearing just as you were ready for them, or an unexpected investor showing up after months of silence, you've already brushed against this principle without naming it. These are not random coincidences. They are moments when your state of consciousness aligned so clearly with a possibility that it became the version of reality you experienced. This is the heart of quantum shifting. You are not pushing matter around like chess pieces. You are tuning consciousness, your own, to select which of the countless possibilities becomes tangible. In other words, your life is less like a mountain to climb and more like a radio dial to tune. But here is the subtle trap. Tuning the dial is not about the thoughts that flit across your mind in a morning visualization, or the words you speak in an affirmation. The quantum field does not respond to surface noise. It listens for something deeper, something Thoth called the authentic energetic signature. Think of your energetic signature as the unique frequency you broadcast every moment, whether you intend to or not. It is created by the total symphony of your being, the emotions you actually feel, the subconscious beliefs that hum beneath your self-talk, the nervous system patterns you absorbed from childhood. It is not what you say you want, it is what you truly vibrate. Imagine a content creator who spends 20 minutes each morning visualizing abundance. She sees the viral videos, the growing subscriber base, the healthy bank account. She feels excited until she opens her analytics and sees flat numbers. Her stomach tightens, doubt creeps in. She checks her email obsessively, hunting for evidence that the universe is listening. Outwardly, she is projecting optimism. Inwardly, her nervous system is broadcasting anxiety and scarcity. The quantum field receives the stronger signal, the authentic one, and mirrors it back. More scarcity, more waiting, more proof that abundance is out there and not yet hers. This is why so many talented entrepreneurs and freelancers feel as if they're running on a treadmill. They master strategy after strategy, fill journals with affirmations, and still experience the same feast or famine cycle. They are speaking the language of abundance while their bodies whisper the frequency of lack. The field does not respond to marketing copy or motivational mantras. It responds to the full vibration of who you are when no one is watching. That vibration is shaped by the beliefs you carry from early family dynamics, by the stories you tell yourself about money, success, and worth, and by the unspoken habits of your nervous system. If you grew up in a household where financial conversations were charged with fear, your body may tighten each time you send an invoice or pitch a client. If you were praised only when you achieved something, your subconscious may equate ease with danger. These patterns are not conscious choices, yet they broadcast continuously like a radio tower, overriding any short burst of positive thinking. To work with the quantum field, you have to work at the level of this authentic energetic signature. That doesn't mean manufacturing a fake positivity. It means allowing all the parts of you, mind, emotions, body, to move into genuine coherence with what you desire. It means noticing when your shoulders tense at the thought of financial freedom and tending to that tension until your body feels safe with abundance. It means recognizing the flicker of unworthiness that arises when you picture the relationship you want and meeting it with compassion until the old story dissolves. This is not about bypassing reality with a smile. It is about aligning with reality at its most fundamental level. The entrepreneurs and creators who seem to magnetize opportunities without effort are not lucky. They have learned, consciously or not, to bring their inner frequency into harmony with the possibilities they wish to experience. Thoth's ancient insight becomes strikingly practical here. When your authentic, energetic signature matches the reality you intend, the field has no choice but to mirror it. No amount of external strategy can substitute for that alignment. You can hustle for years, build flawless funnels, and still be broadcasting a signal of fear. Until the signal changes, the results cannot. This is both the challenge and the liberation of quantum shifting. It asks you to stop performing success and start embodying it. It asks you to notice where your energy contradicts your intentions and to bring those contradictions into the light. When your inner state and your outer desire are no longer at war, reality reorganizes itself almost effortlessly. The business world often celebrates the hustle as the path to power. Thoth's teaching offers a more radical possibility. Power comes from resonance. You don't force reality to bend. You remember that it is already bending around the frequency you carry. And when that frequency is authentic, when it is the unshakable truth of your being, the shift is not just possible, it is inevitable.
Part 2. Coherent transmission and energetic leakage. Once you start to recognize your authentic energetic signature, the next challenge is learning to keep it steady. It's one thing to have a flash of alignment during a morning meditation or while hiking a quiet trail. It's another to carry that clarity into a Monday full of Slack pings, investor calls, or the endless demands of running your own creative business. Thoth's teachings describe this steady state as coherent transmission, the moment when your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system broadcast the same clear frequency without static or distortion. Think of a high-end audio system. When every component, amplifier, cables, and speakers is perfectly calibrated, a single note of music emerges rich and pure. When even one wire is loose, the sound warbles and the magic disappears. Your consciousness works the same way. The quantum field is like a giant cosmic receiver, and it responds not to what you say you want, but to the clarity of the signal you actually send. For founders and freelancers, coherence is more than a spiritual ideal. It's a real-world power tool. You've probably experienced glimpses of it already. Remember the days when everything clicked, your creative flow was effortless, opportunities showed up at the perfect time, and even small setbacks seemed to redirect you towards something better? That is what it feels like when your inner frequency is coherent. Your mind, heart, and body are pulling in the same direction, and reality responds by unfolding with uncanny grace. But coherence isn't just about feeling good. It's a measurable state of harmony in which your mental focus, emotional tone, and physiological rhythms are aligned. Modern neuroscience speaks of heart-brain coherence, a state where the heartbeat and brain waves synchronize, producing calm clarity and a heightened ability to solve problems. Thoth, long before EEGs or heart rate monitors, understood that this same principle governs our interaction with the quantum field. When you maintain coherence, you become a clear transmitter of the reality you intend to experience. The challenge, of course, is that life is full of static. An unexpected bill lands in your inbox. A key client delays payment. Your carefully planned product launch collides with the market downturn. Each disruption tempts your nervous system back into old patterns of fear and scarcity. The moment you slip into worry, your signal wobbles. And here is where many ambitious people get stuck. They interpret the wobble as failure and try to compensate with more effort, working longer hours, adding more techniques, forcing positive thinking. But frantic action only adds more static. The quantum field doesn't reward busyness. It mirrors the frequency beneath it. If your action is driven by fear, the field hears fear no matter how impressive your to-do list looks. This is why Thoth emphasized inner coherence over external tactics. To maintain a stable transmission, you need to cultivate habits that bring your entire being into alignment. That might mean daily breath work or a simple 2-minute pause before every meeting to feel your feet on the floor and reconnect with the energy of abundance. It might mean catching yourself when you're mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios and instead letting your body settle into the sensation of trust. The specific practice is less important than the result. A nervous system that feels safe enough to broadcast the frequency of what you desire. Yet even when you taste coherence, another hidden challenge rises, something Thoth called energetic leakage. If coherence is the clean, steady tone of a perfectly tuned instrument, energetic leakage is the hiss and crackle that creeps in when you doubt yourself, cling to outcomes, or carry unconscious fear. Leakage shows up in countless subtle ways. You set an intention for financial growth, but a tiny part of you worries you'll never handle the responsibility. You visualize a thriving creative career, yet you secretly fear being visible enough to be criticized. You affirm that you deserve love, but old memories whisper that intimacy leads to pain. These quiet undercurrents carry more weight than hours of affirmation, because the quantum field reads the totality of your signal, not just the words you speak. Consider a young founder who just landed her first major funding round. Outwardly, she's celebrating. Inwardly, her shoulders tense whenever she thinks about investor expectations. Her conscious mind says, "I'm ready for this growth," but her nervous system is broadcasting anxiety about failure and loss of freedom. That anxiety is not a flaw in her character. It's simply a piece of her energetic broadcast. The field responds to it, echoing back delays, conflicts, or unexpected challenges that match the hidden vibration. Energetic leakage often hides beneath the surface of ambition. You might recognize it as the subtle urge to check metrics every hour, the habit of rehearsing conversations before they happen, or the inability to stop working even when your body is exhausted. On the outside, these behaviors look like dedication. On the inside, they reveal a signal of doubt. Attachment is another common source of leakage. When you clutch tightly to a specific outcome, this exact client, that precise revenue goal, you are broadcasting the vibration of not yet having it. The field mirrors the feeling of lack, not the desire itself. This is why some entrepreneurs notice that the moment they stop obsessing over a particular deal, it finally closes. The frequency of trust replaced the frequency of need, and the reality responded. Thoth's remedy for energetic leakage is radical in its simplicity. Become aware of the contradictions in your own broadcast and bring them into harmony. Instead of forcing yourself to think positive, acknowledge the anxious part of you with compassion. Notice the tension in your body when you imagine success and breathe into that tension softens. When your nervous system feels safe with the very thing you're asking for, the hidden static dissolves. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Practices like somatic experiencing, mindful self-compassion, or even simple diaphragmatic breathing can retrain the nervous system to associate abundance with safety rather than threat. As the body relaxes, your energetic signature shifts without effortful thought control. The leak is sealed not by suppression, but by integration. For ambitious Americans raised on hustle culture, this can feel counterintuitive. We're used to solving problems with more action. If the roof leaks, you hammer harder. But in the quantum realm, force creates resistance. Coherence emerges when you honor every part of your experience and let your energy unify naturally. When thoughts, emotions, and the nervous system are aligned, the signal you send into the quantum field is unmistakably clear. Opportunities, partnerships, and solutions begin to show up with a timing that defies ordinary logic. From the outside, it can look like luck or serendipity. From the inside, it feels like flow, the deep sense that reality is meeting you halfway, because at the level of frequency, it finally knows exactly what you're asking for.
Part 3. Observer Effect and Attention Discipline. By now, you can feel the pattern. When your inner frequency is clear and coherent, the quantum field responds almost immediately. But how exactly does that response happen? Why does a subtle shift in your internal state change what you experience in the so-called outside world? Modern physics gives us a clue in what scientists call the observer effect. At the subatomic level, particles don't behave like tiny billiard balls following a fixed path. They exist as a haze of probabilities, every possible position at once, until someone observes them. The act of observation collapses that cloud of possibility into a single, measurable reality. This is not mystical poetry, it's an experimental fact repeated in laboratories around the world. And it echoes what Thoth taught thousands of years ago. Consciousness is not a passenger in the universe, it's the driver. Your attention is the selector, the hand on the cosmic radio dial choosing which station plays next. For a founder, a freelancer, or a creator building something from scratch, this is both thrilling and sobering. It means that the quality of your attention, the way you focus, the emotion behind your focus, shapes the opportunities you meet. Your thoughts are not idle background noise, they are instructions. Where attention goes, reality follows. But here's the twist. The universe doesn't listen to casual, scattered attention. It responds to dominant attention, the focus you return to again and again, especially when it's charged with emotion. 10 minutes of morning visualization can be completely outweighed by a day of anxious scrolling or late-night worrying. The field measures the signal you send most consistently and with the greatest emotional voltage. Think of it like managing a brand. You wouldn't spend 5 minutes a day creating beautiful marketing materials and then spend the rest of the week trash-talking your own product online. Yet that's how many ambitious people treat their own attention. They visualize success for a few minutes, then spend the next 23 hours broadcasting fear and scarcity. The dominant signal wins every time. This is why attention discipline is not about rigid thought control. It's about consciously choosing where your emotional energy flows. The goal isn't to eliminate every negative thought, a hopeless and exhausting task. Instead, it's to notice where your attention naturally gravitates and gently redirect it toward the reality you want to experience. Imagine attention as a puppy. When it wanders into the garden of fear or doubt, you don't scold or yank it back. You simply guide it, again and again, toward the vision you've chosen. Over time, the puppy learns the path, and your focus becomes effortless. Entrepreneurs often understand this intuitively when it comes to strategy. Focus on your best customers, your highest value projects, the metrics that matter. But in the realm of consciousness, the stakes are even higher. Every moment of emotionally charged attention is a creative act. It tells the quantum field, this is real, make more of this. The emotional charge matters because emotion is the amplifier of attention. A thought tinged with strong feeling sends a signal far more powerful than a dry idea. This is why resentment or fear can create such persistent patterns. They carry intense emotional energy. And it's why gratitude, excitement, and genuine passion accelerate manifestation, because they turn your chosen frequency into a broadcast the universe can't miss. Consider a content creator who loves her craft. When she loses herself in the joy of editing a video or writing a script, hours pass like minutes. Her attention is naturally absorbed, her emotional energy vibrant. Without effort, she is sending a crystal-clear signal of creativity and abundance. The field responds, the right collaborator appears, a brand reaches out, the algorithm boosts her work. Contrast that with the same creator on a day when metrics dip and fear takes over. She spends the evening refreshing analytics, replaying negative comments, worrying that her audience is slipping away. Her attention is equally focused, but now the emotional charge is anxiety. The field mirrors the stronger, more consistent vibration, more reasons to worry. This isn't superstition, it's the practical application of the observer effect. Your dominant, emotionally charged attention collapses infinite possibilities into the timeline you experience. The question is never whether you're creating, only what you're creating. So how do you cultivate attention discipline without turning your mind into a battlefield? Start by becoming aware of where your focus spends most of its day. Track it as you would track expenses or web traffic. You might be surprised to discover how much of your mental energy is devoted to problems you don't actually want. Next, practice gentle redirection. When you catch your mind rehearsing failure or replaying an argument, simply guide it back to the frequency you've chosen, perhaps the feeling of abundance, the thrill of creative flow, or the quiet confidence that your next client is already on the way. Like training that puppy, consistency matters more than force. Finally, build attention anchors, moments in your routine that naturally bring you back to your chosen state. It could be the first sip of morning coffee, a brief pause before every Zoom call, or a short reflection before bed. Each anchor is a reminder to align your attention and emotion with the reality you intend to experience. Over time, these small acts create a dominant signal that the quantum field cannot ignore. Thoth's wisdom makes the stakes clear. Quantum shifting isn't about bending reality through heroic effort. It's about remembering that reality is already pliable, waiting for you to choose which version you'll inhabit. Consciousness is the fabric. Your authentic energetic signature is the thread. Coherent transmission weaves it into a stable pattern. Attention, steady, emotionally charged, and lovingly disciplined, is the loom that brings the pattern into form. For entrepreneurs and creators raised in a culture that worships hustle, this can feel like the ultimate paradigm shift. You don't win by outworking the universe. You win by aligning with it. You stop chasing opportunities and start broadcasting a frequency so clear that opportunities chase you. When you understand this, even the everyday grind takes on new meaning. Each email, each design sprint, each investor pitch becomes more than just a task. It becomes an act of conscious creation. You're no longer simply building a business. You're selecting the reality in which that business thrives. And the more consistently you hold that frequency through coherent transmission, free from energetic leakage, with disciplined attention, the more inevitable the shift becomes. Reality stops being a static backdrop and starts revealing itself as what Thoth always knew it to be, a living, responsive field of possibility, waiting for you to choose the story you want to live.
Part 1. Self-awareness and radical responsibility. If you've ever tried to scale a startup, launch a creative project, or simply keep a freelance career afloat, you know how easy it is to get lost in the noise. The calendar fills itself before you're even awake. Your phone blinks with a dozen competing urgencies before you've taken the first sip of coffee. It's natural to think that the next hack, the next podcast episode, the next conference keynote will finally give you the breakthrough you've been chasing. Yet when it comes to quantum shifting, the practice of aligning your consciousness so reality itself reorganizes, no external trick is more valuable than cultivating the first pillar of coherence, self-awareness. Self-awareness is not a buzzword here. It is the ground on which every other pillar stands. In business culture, we often treat awareness as an intellectual exercise. Know your market, know your customer, know your numbers. But the kind of awareness Thoth taught and that quantum shifting requires is radically personal. It's the ability to witness your own thoughts and emotions without being hijacked by them. It's noticing the surge of irritation when a client emails you at midnight, the flicker of envy when a competitor announces a big win, the subtle clench in your stomach when someone mentions money. Imagine sitting in a pitch meeting and feeling a wave of anxiety ripple through your chest as the investors start asking questions. Normally, you'd either push the feeling away, pretend it isn't there, or let it take the wheel and rattle your presentation. Self-awareness gives you a third option, to see the anxiety, name it, and hold it without collapsing into it. You become the scientist observing the experiment rather than the experiment itself. That small gap between sensation and reaction is where quantum shifting begins. Why does this matter? Because the quantum field responds to the frequency you broadcast, not to the image you curate. If you're unconsciously radiating fear, no amount of polished pitch decks or confident handshakes can mask the signal. Self-awareness is the skill that lets you spot these hidden frequencies before they sabotage your intention. It is both diagnosis and medicine. The simple act of noticing begins to dissolve the static. For entrepreneurs and creatives, cultivating this pillar means setting aside time, not to plan or produce, but to observe. It might be a 10-minute morning practice of silent breathing, a journaling session that captures the raw, unfiltered flow of thought,
or simply the habit of pausing before each decision to ask, what am I experiencing right now? No judgment, no need to fix, just clarity. Over time, that clarity becomes second nature, and you carry it into every conversation, every brainstorm, every sleepless night. But awareness alone is not enough. You can watch your thoughts for years and still feel powerless if you cling to the belief that life happens to you. That's where the second pillar, radical responsibility, steps in. Radical responsibility is not about blame, and it is certainly not about guilt. It is about owning the fact that your energetic broadcast, conscious and unconscious, is shaping the reality you experience. For a founder, this is both empowering and unnerving. It means that the difficult client, the unexpected market downturn, even the miscommunication that derails a project, all reflect something in your own field, not as punishment, but as information. Consider a freelancer who keeps attracting clients who pay late. At first, it seems like bad luck or a broken industry. But when she examines her own energy with honesty, she notices a lifelong pattern, a quiet fear of asking for what she's worth, a habit of apologizing before she names her price. Her nervous system carries the frequency of scarcity, and the quantum field faithfully mirrors it back to her. The moment she claims responsibility for that frequency, she gains the power to change it. This pillar asks for a kind of courage our culture rarely celebrates. It's far easier to point outward, to blame the economy, the algorithm, or the fickle tastes of an audience. But radical responsibility invites you to see every event as feedback from the quantum field. The late invoice is not just an inconvenience, it is a mirror of hidden doubts about value. The unexpected opportunity is not mere coincidence, it is a confirmation of an inner shift toward trust and abundance. Thoth's ancient language described this as co-creation. Reality is not a static backdrop, but a living conversation between your consciousness and the field of infinite possibilities. When you own your side of that conversation, you stop being a passive recipient and start being a conscious participant. For the modern entrepreneur, this doesn't mean abandoning spreadsheets or ignoring market data. It means recognizing that your inner state is the first metric. Before you tweak your pricing strategy or rewrite your sales copy, ask what vibration you're sending. Is it confidence or doubt? Gratitude or desperation? The field will match the stronger signal, and that signal is generated inside you long before it appears on a balance sheet. Radical responsibility is liberating because it puts the steering wheel back in your hands. The moment you claim that every experience is a reflection of your energetic state, you move from victim to creator. You no longer wait for luck to find you. You align with the frequency that magnetizes what you want. Taken together, self-awareness and radical responsibility form the bedrock of quantum shifting. The first shows you what you're broadcasting. The second empowers you to change the broadcast. Without them, the other pillars are just theory. With them, you begin to live as the kind of leader, creator, or founder whose very presence changes the room, not because of force or charisma, but because your frequency is clear and your ownership of it is absolute.
Part 2. Accountability states and detachment from perception. Once you begin to see your inner patterns with clear eyes and claim responsibility for the signal you send, the next step is to hold that signal steady no matter what swirls around you. For entrepreneurs and creatives who live in a world of constant pivots and unpredictable markets, this is where the real work begins. Thoth called this the practice of living in accountability states, a commitment to maintain specific frequencies regardless of the day's external evidence. Think of it like the CEO who defines a company culture so clearly that even when revenues dip or competitors surge, the team stays true to its core values. An accountability state is a personal version of that culture. It's a vibrational anchor you choose consciously and return to again and again until it becomes your default setting. Maybe you decide to hold the frequency of gratitude even when a pitch deck falls flat. Or you choose curiosity when a big client backs out, trusting that there's something to learn instead of something to fear. These states are not about pretending everything is fine. They are about deciding in advance how you will meet whatever comes. For the freelance designer waiting on a late payment, an accountability state might look like maintaining the energy of abundance even while calling the client to follow up. For the founder whose product launch hits unexpected technical snags, it might mean embodying the frequency of calm leadership instead of feeding the team's anxiety. Each time you hold your chosen state, you reinforce to the quantum field that your frequency, not the external circumstance, defines your reality. It's tempting to confuse this with toxic positivity or denial, but there's a crucial difference. Toxic positivity tries to plaster a smile over fear. Accountability states acknowledge the fear, but refuse to let it dictate the signal you send. You feel the disappointment, the worry, even the flash of anger, and you choose a frequency anyway. The field responds not to the passing emotion, but to the dominant vibration you embody. This discipline can feel like strength training for the soul. At first, it's awkward. Old habits pull you toward reactivity. The nervous system wants to match the drama of the moment. But every time you notice the pull and gently return to your chosen state, you build energetic muscle. Over weeks and months, the state you once struggled to maintain becomes as natural as breathing. The payoff is more than spiritual. Teams sense the steadiness of a leader who can stay anchored when chaos erupts. Clients trust a freelancer whose energy signals calm confidence rather than desperation. Opportunities gravitate toward those who transmit a stable frequency because, at the quantum level, like truly attracts like. Yet even as you strengthen these accountability states, another subtle challenge emerges: our addiction to interpreting every event through the lens of good or bad. Thoth warned that this habit, assigning meaning too quickly, locks us into limited timelines. He called the antidote detachment from perception. Detachment from perception doesn't mean apathy or numbness. It means holding your interpretations lightly. Most of us, especially in the fast-moving world of business and creative work, are trained to label outcomes immediately. The investor says no, bad. The video goes viral, good. A partnership dissolves, terrible. A competitor folds, excellent. But each label is a box, and each box narrows the range of possibilities the quantum field can deliver. Imagine you lose a contract you were counting on. The conventional mind files it under failure and generates the familiar cocktail of frustration and worry. But what if that apparent setback is the very opening that allows a larger, more aligned opportunity to appear? If you cling to the first interpretation, you may miss the subtle signals pointing to what's next. For a young founder, detachment from perception might mean feeling the sting of a lost investor, but resisting the rush to call it a disaster. For a content creator, it might mean noticing that a video didn't perform as expected, but staying curious about the new audience that shows up a week later. In both cases, the practice is to observe without locking the experience into a permanent category. This is not easy. Our brains evolved to make quick judgments for survival, safe or dangerous, friend or foe. In modern life, that wiring translates into an almost compulsive need to decide whether something is good or bad, success or failure. But in the quantum landscape, where countless timelines exist simultaneously, such snap judgments can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Detachment from perception invites you to step back, to see every event as information rather than verdict. You can feel disappointment or excitement without letting those feelings harden into a fixed story. This openness keeps the field of possibility wide and prevents your energetic signature from collapsing into the frequency of fear or arrogance. For the American entrepreneur or freelancer, this practice has a surprising side effect. It frees enormous creative energy.
When you no longer burn mental bandwidth deciding whether each twist of fate is a win or a loss, you have more attention for strategy, innovation, and genuine connection. You become less reactive and more visionary. Thoth's ancient wisdom understood this long before neuroscience confirmed it. A mind that holds perception lightly is a mind free to tune into higher frequencies. And when your attention is no longer chained to immediate judgments, the quantum field has room to orchestrate outcomes far beyond what you could have planned. By embracing accountability states and detachment from perception, you complete the second half of the 4 pillars of coherence. Self-awareness and radical responsibility show you the signal and claim it as your own. Accountability states keep that signal steady. Detachment from perception prevents you from collapsing possibility into premature conclusions. Together, these pillars form the architecture of a stable frequency, one strong enough for the quantum field to mirror with precision.
Part 3. The Sacred Threshold and Frequency Fidelity. After you've built the 4 pillars, self-awareness, radical responsibility, accountability states, and detachment from perception, something extraordinary begins to stir. You sense it first as a subtle unease, a feeling that the old rhythms no longer fit. Projects that once lit you up suddenly feel heavy. Goals that used to define success start to lose their color. It's as if you woke up in someone else's life and can't remember when the switch occurred. Thoth called this liminal space the sacred threshold, and if you're walking the path of quantum shifting, you will meet it. It is the stage between worlds, the place where the timeline you've outgrown and the timeline you are stepping into coexist. For a modern founder or creative, the threshold can feel like an identity crisis. You've spent years building a brand, a reputation, a community. Now, the very structures you worked so hard to create begin to feel foreign. The product that once defined your business starts to feel like yesterday's news. The audience you fought to win suddenly mirrors back an older version of yourself. Part of you wants to double down and hold the familiar shape. Another part whispers that something bigger is waiting. This is the chrysalis moment. Like a caterpillar dissolving into soup, you are neither who you were nor yet who you are becoming. From the outside, it can look like chaos, missed deadlines, sudden fatigue, relationships shifting without warning. From the inside, it can feel like falling apart. Your nervous system senses the death of old patterns and reacts with a primal alarm. The ego whispers that you're making a mistake, that you should retreat to the safety of what you know. But this dissolution isn't a breakdown. It's the precise recalibration required for the new frequency to stabilize. Think of a software upgrade. Before the new operating system can install, the old processes must shut down. For a moment, the screen goes black, and you wonder if you've crashed the machine. In reality, everything necessary for the upgrade is happening beneath the surface. The sacred threshold asks for trust, the kind of trust that feels almost reckless to a mind trained in spreadsheets and quarterly metrics. It invites you to stay present without rushing to fill the void. When the old business model stops making sense, you resist the urge to slap on a quick fix. When creative inspiration goes quiet, you resist the panic that says you're losing your touch. Instead, you hold space for the unfamiliar, breathing through the uncertainty until a new coherence emerges. Entrepreneurs often encounter this phase when they pivot a company or reinvent a brand. Freelancers feel it when their skills outgrow the niche that first made them successful. Content creators meet it when their audience expands beyond the identity they started with. The threshold feels uncomfortable because your nervous system is being rewired to sustain a higher frequency of possibility. This is where the final practice becomes essential: frequency fidelity and timeline stabilization. It's one thing to access a new timeline, it's another to live there consistently.
Old patterns have momentum. Neural pathways built over decades try to pull you back toward what is familiar, even if it no longer fits. Clients from your past call with offers that reflect your former identity. Friends and family unconsciously trigger old responses. Circumstances appear that tempt you to prove you haven't changed. Frequency fidelity means holding the vibration of your new reality even when the evidence around you still looks like the old one. It is the art of protecting your emerging frequency from both external and internal gravity. You practice it when you continue to embody abundance even before the next round of funding closes. You practice it when you speak and act as the visionary leader you are becoming, even while colleagues still treat you as the scrappy startup founder they remember. Timeline stabilization isn't about perfection, it's about gentle consistency. There will be days when you feel pulled back, when doubts surge or old habits resurface. The key is not to panic or self-punish, but to return again and again to the frequency you have chosen. Each return is a vote for the new timeline. Each moment of fidelity strengthens the neural and energetic pathways that make the shift permanent. Thoth's own life embodied this principle. Ancient accounts describe him moving between the realm of gods and the realm of humans without losing his connection to higher wisdom. He maintained fidelity to his chosen frequency, and the physical world reorganized itself around that unwavering signal. For the modern entrepreneur, the same principle holds. Reality will eventually catch up to the vibration you consistently inhabit. It helps to cultivate what might be called energetic boundaries. This isn't about isolation, it's about discernment. You choose relationships, projects, and even daily habits that reinforce your new frequency. You notice which conversations drain your energy and which ones lift it. You gently limit exposure to voices, internal or external, that question the reality you are building. Over time, these boundaries become the scaffolding that allows the new timeline to settle until it feels like home. At first, frequency fidelity can feel like balancing on a tightrope. The old world calls with its familiar logic: work harder, prove yourself, play it safe. The new world speaks in a choir language of alignment and ease. Your job is not to fight the old or cling desperately to the new, but to keep tuning your inner dial to the station you've already chosen. And then, almost imperceptibly, the balance tips. What once felt like an act of discipline becomes natural. The people who resonate with your new frequency show up without effort. The opportunities that match your new identity begin to flow. You realize that the old timeline hasn't disappeared, you simply no longer inhabit it. This is the promise of the 4 pillars and the journey through the sacred threshold. You emerge not as someone who has achieved a goal, but as someone whose very state of being selects a different reality. Self-awareness reveals the signal. Radical responsibility claims it. Accountability states hold it steady. Detachment from perception keeps possibility open. The sacred threshold dissolves the old self, and frequency fidelity locks in the new. For the ambitious, creative Americans navigating a culture obsessed with hustle, these teachings are not an escape from action, but an invitation to a different kind of power. You still build companies, launch products, and create art, but you do so as a conscious co-creator with reality itself. The grind is replaced by flow. The chase gives way to magnetic pull. And what once felt like an extraordinary leap becomes, in time, the most natural way to live.
After everything you've just explored, the message lands with simple, almost disarming clarity. You are the frequency. The shift you've been chasing isn't a clever technique or a hidden ritual. It's not another framework to master or a secret script you need to memorize.
It is the natural state of your own consciousness when you finally stop wrestling with it. Once you let your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system settle into genuine alignment, quantum shifting stops being something you practice and becomes the way you live. This is the point where the hustle mindset quietly dissolves. The grind to prove your worth, the obsession with metrics and external validation, all of it loses its grip. Reality no longer feels like something you need to bend. It begins to flow around you like a river responding to its own source. You don't force synchronicities. They simply appear. You don't beg opportunities to arrive. They show up on time, because your presence itself has become the signal. So pause for a breath and trust the wisdom already humming inside you. The guidance you've been seeking is not out there. It's the quiet intelligence that has always been part of you. Let it lead the next step and let us know what awakens in you. Share what you're noticing in the comments. Your insight may be the reminder someone else needs to remember their own frequency too.